Hello everybody and welcome here to Wine with Jimmy. Thank you so much for clicking buy. This is all about wine education on this channel, as I'm sure you are aware. But sometimes I give these wonderful little presentations on some of my top drops from key institutions around the world. This time I am looking at the multiple grocer in the United Kingdom called Waitrose. So if you are UK based, there are some wonderful drops to investigate in the Waitrose Cellar. So let's have a look at my wines. And also currently we do have in the UK right at this moment, I think Waitrose have 25% off 6 bottles. So this may be an exceptional chance for you to get these at discounted prices. So I attended a press tasting recently with Waitrose and tasted multiple wines, and I've selected sort of 8 or 9 of my favourite wines at really good value for money pricing. So many of these are sort of below £12 per bottle. And remember, of course, if that offer is on 25% off 6, you'll be able to get these a little bit cheaper. One of the first ones that I found very fascinating was part of the Waitrose range called Loved and Found. Now, this is where they are identifying very unique, often very sort of indigenous, local, native grape varieties to wherever they may be, and not necessarily grape varieties that we have heard of before. And this one really sort of stuck out like a sore thumb. This was Famoso, a grape variety which I had heard before but had never tasted. So this is 100% Famoso. It's made by Alessandro Michelin. You'll see up there on your slide. Now, you'll see this is the typical labelling on the left-hand side for Waitrose Loved and Found, with the grape variety leading on the front. This is from Emilia-Romagna, which is the area in central Italy, sort of just north and northeast of Tuscany, north of places like Marche, but south of places like Veneto and Lombardia. So this is where we have grapes being harvested in mid-September, going through a cold fermentation with soft pressing. And I love this wine. I thought it was very fascinating. It's a little bit like sort of muscat touch to it, so fairly aromatic. But I really liked the acidity that came through here, and lots of sort of floral compounds. So lots of beautiful sort of flowers, and it had a herbal edge to it as well. So a decent wine, really good price, sort of real summer drinking, capturing that sort of herbal floral note to it. And of course, putting this on a dinner table or at a barbecue would be very fascinating, because it is a remarkably unique and really sort of a rare grape variety. Next up then is a grape variety which I'm sure you have come across before. This is Albariño in Spain, or as you can see on the slide, Albariño in Portugal. Now this is one of the great white wine styles of Iberia, of the Iberian Peninsula. And you'll see here we've got the label on the left-hand side. This is Ventos. So this is Ventos Albariño. It's from the Vinho Verde area of northern Portugal. And what I loved about this, in fact, is that you've got fairly old vines in place here from the Valle do Ave, from 20 to 30-year-old vines on this kind of weathered sandy granite. This is sort of very light press still ferment, as you would expect in style. I really like the label. I think it's got a lot of interest behind it. So you'll see lovely capturing of floral, sort of herbal elements to this wine. And I loved it for its fragrance, its snappiness, it's fresh, clean, just lovely. And with a little bit of texture as well, just a little bit at 12% alcohol. Next up then is the Grüner Veltliner. And I am an absolute sucker for this grape variety. I love it because this is a grape variety which actually is fascinating in terms of its characteristic, because it has a compound in it which gives you sort of a pepperiness in some way. Now, we're very much used to peppery characteristics on things like Syrah, for example, or some of you might have tried things like Montepulciano and others that have that slight pepperiness. But there are some whites that can show it in kind of a white pepper way, and sometimes sort of that kind of snappy rocket characteristic, and that is Grüner Veltliner. And that's what they've captured here. It's a really, really well-made Grüner Veltliner. So it's made by Markus, who has been working sort of alongside the Waitrose family for quite some time now on loess soils, windblown loess. And to capture that kind of lovely pepperiness that comes from the skins, that's come from a 6-hour skin contact. Then it goes through fermentation in still off the skins with a little bit of lees contact after that. So it's that kind of rockety, white, peppery, slightly herbal, light and fragrant style that really captures your imagination. So really lovely style. So this is the Waitrose #1 Grüner Veltliner from the Niederösterreich, and it's the 2024. Next up then, we're getting a little bit more pricier now. It's at £13, and this is the Assyrtiko that you'll see here. So the Assyrtiko is made by Petros Syros, and it's from the Peloponnese Peninsula, specifically around Nemea, grown at altitude. So it is on mountainsides, and it's where really where the family originates from to make this wine style. The grapes were harvested by hand, and they were ripe. Cold maceration took place for 12 hours. So that is when the grapes they've gone through pressing or crushing, but with the skins, they have that sort of cold maceration for 12 hours to bring out a little bit more flavor characteristic. And then it's quite a cold fermentation in steel as well, often around 16 to 18 degrees Celsius. So it's 12.7% here, decent acidity at sort of 5.5 grams per litre. And I really like this because it's kind of a medium weight style wine, so medium bodied, a little bit rounded, but with a typical Assyrtiko saltiness that has that kind of bite with crunchy fruit, a little bit of fennel. And then is fresh at the same time. So it certainly is a wine that has a bit of roundness and a bit of body, but then has that saltiness, which I think all good Assyrtikos should certainly have. And it's a little bit fruit forward in comparison to, say, a real savoury herbal Santorini Assyrtiko. But it's also reflected in the price. It's not that expensive. It only comes in at about £13 a bottle. And we are going to be staying in Greece again, and in fact in the same area for my next wine, because this is the range again that we call the Waitrose Loved and Found. I always want to say lost and found, but it is loved and found. So you'll see the bottle on the left-hand side. This is what we saw earlier with the Famoso. So you see the grape variety leads very prominently there, Moschofilero. And this is 90% Moschofilero, 5% Assyrtiko, and 5% Syrah. It's made by Leonidas Nasiakos. It's at a high altitude location, so a plateau on sandy clay, and the grapes here ripen nice over a long time and nice and slowly. So this was brought to the winery where it was cold pressed at about 7 degrees, fermented in steel. The residual sugar here is hardly anything. So this is a very dry rosé at 1.2 grams per litre. So very, very low. Loads of acid in this wine, so nearly 7 grams per litre. I found this really lovely, that kind of rose petal, lovely floral compounds to it, and lovely fresh acidity as well. So a really great, unusual, unique rosé for the summer months. And we're going to go to Austria next, where we are going to talk about a really excellent wine, which is made by a friend of mine. So this is Markus Lensch, and you'll see the label on your screen there. So it says Lensch at the top. That is the name of the winery. Markus is one of the generation winemakers there, making Zweigelt from the 2022 vintage. So the Lensch family are really just off the Neusiedlersee Lake in an area called the Seewinkel National Park. It's beautiful. So this is the other side of the Niesoidersee lake, just across from Vienna. And this is Zweigelt, of course. This is 10% of the juice has been bled. So when you have the juice and the skins in the vat, what Markus has done here is actually taken some of that juice away, which you'll probably use in a rosé or something. And then what you have is more skin contact to the juice to give a bit more concentration. It will spend 2 weeks on the skins, which is 1 week during ferment, 1 week post ferment, aged in steel and barriques. What I really love about this is that Markus has really captured the soul of Zweigelt here with a lovely, bright, fresh, sort of white pepper characteristic. Lots of juicy red fruits, so that kind of cherry and plum, violet and a little bit of lavender, and it just has a touch of savouriness coming through. But it's on the lighter side. It's a very smashable, juicy, fresh red wine, which I really urge you pick up for summer. Onto some style completely different. We have the Vonderwild Primitivo, which comes from Macedonia, and this is the 2023. So this is made from 5 to 10-year-old vines, and the grapes were hand harvested, fairly large yield from it. After crushing, fermentation took place in steel tanks at around 24 to 25 degrees for 6 days. It then went through its malolactic and lees, and then it was aged actually with oak chippings. So it's a shortcut method in getting that kind of oaky, sweet vanilla note to it. I found this very fascinating because it had certainly the characteristics you want from Primitivo. So it's quite bold, it's full-bodied. It has the darker fruits, some dried fruits, some touches of raisin coming through, lots of spice, that vanilla, that clove and cardamom that comes from that oak chipping integration. And it does have a little bit of residual sugar at about 6 grams. So this makes this kind of sort of almost sort of off dry in style, but that gives you that kind of weight in the palate, that glycerol roundness. So it's a real full, rounded, sort of sweet and spicy wine, but really keenly priced, and from another unusual part of the world for wine making, at about £9 a bottle. Very, very impressive. Next up then is a very classic style, which comes from Coonawarra. So this is from the South Australia area. And this, for me, is a very typical style. So Little Giant Cabernet Sauvignon 2022 vintage made by Corey Ryan with sustainable principles in the vineyard. So there's irrigation and it has a sustainable approach to water, soil and disease management. Machine harvested grapes, and it's fermented with commercial yeast, again a real typical style here. And it's fermented fairly cool and 12 months maturing in tank and oak. Quite a lot of alcohol here, 14.5%. Residual sugar is much lower at around 2 to 3 grams per litre. So what I love about this is that this has Cabernet, so it's blackberry, black currant, but it has that real dollop of what we'd expect from a Coonawarra Cabernet Sauvignon, that kind of menthol eucalypt character, which pushes through quite a lot of herb as well. Now that is due to the terroir here, the Coonawarra zone, as well as Padthaway and other parts in South Australia have quite a lot of eucalyptus trees, and the oils from these trees get into the grape skins, creating that kind of aromatic profile in Cabernet Sauvignon style. So 2022 vintage at about £13 with a big full-bodied but a big bear hug soft style of a wine. And for my most expensive wine from my lineup, and only £15, this is the Villa Cafaglio Organic Chianti Classico from Tuscany and the 2022 vintage. Now this is 100% Sangiovese, which is a very attractive thing to find out about Chianti Classico, because other grapes can be blended in up to 20%. And when this happens, you often can lose some of the soul of Sangiovese sometimes. So this is grown on this calcareous marly limestone soils. So This is quite classic of the area, called Albariño, and the grapes were harvested from late September into early October. About a 10-day skin contact here. And with selected yeasts, they performed the fermentation with some pumping over as well. Maturation for 1 year in 65 hectoliter Slavonian oak, which is very traditional across many parts of Italy. That's oak from Croatia. And then a further 12 months aging in glass-lined cement vats. The winemakers here, Attilio and Laura, have really made a beautiful, well-poised Chianti Classico, which really conveys traditional style. So no rich darkness. It's very elegant in its expression. The acidity is kind of fairly soft. It's about 5 grams per litre, alcohol about 13.5%. But this is full of sort of red currant, cranberry, and red cherries. You've got a lot of sort of minerally, stony character throughout this wine. A little bit of herbal elements to it, cedar, pine, and resin. Lovely, good structural tannin, sort of medium to full body in its approach, but a real typical, traditional, but beautiful expression of Chianti Classico. Well, that's the end of my video here, looking at my top drops from Waitrose. This has been filmed in May of 2025. Please do let me know if you have any comments or questions. Have you tried any of these wines? Do you have any other favourites from Waitrose in the United Kingdom? Please do get in touch. And if you find yourself in the UK, come and say hello for a glass, a class, or a bottle. I've been Jimmy Smith. Ciao for now. Goodbye.